So good everyone. Trust we doing well. Trust we have a nice day. So in today's video, one of the things we'll be talking about again is still on liquidity. Our focus is still on liquidity. So one of the things we'll be talking about is trendline liquidity. We've talked about yesterday video we talked about double bottom liquidity and double top liquidity. We've talked about our engineered liquidity. So in today's video, one of the things we'll be looking at is how to trade with trendline liquidity. Understand, trendline is different from range. Okay, want to know how to trade with trendline liquidity. So when you see trendline, when you see a trendline liquidity, what are you looking for? What can you say about that? Okay, so understand is that when we have a trend, like for instance now, example for trend is something like this. Let me say example for trend. Example for trend is something like this. Well, I have something like this. Or something like this. This is let me show you example for trend. I have something like this. So you to understand a trend, you understand like a trend, like when you say trend, what does it mean? So for you to understand what a trend means, makes you to understand trend line liquidity. So very easy. It's a very easy concept also to understand. Understanding it takes you to understand what trend is, what it means to when you see a trend, what it means to see a trend. So I'm trying to show you an example of a trend so you understand what a trend is. So now when we see something like this, now this market is pushing to a direction. This is a trend. Let me say this is a trend. Are you getting me clear? This is a trend. See, this is a trend. This is a trend. The market is just doing something like this. It's a trend. So I want you to see something like this is a trend. Can you see? This is a trend. This is a trend. The market is trending. Just tapping into this line and fails to break above or below. This is a trend line. Okay? A trend line. See how it goes. A trend line. So I want to see how we could get a trade set up having a trend line liquidity and still take a trade, a confident trade for that matter, using a trend line liquidity. So for instance now, you always start from uptrend markets. They will show you an example of a downtrend market. So on uptrend markets, we have the market doing something like this. So that's for creating a sweep of liquidity. We have the market doing like this. Market first swept liquidity, gives us a sweep of liquidity, and gives us a break of structure to the upside. And when we have a break of structure to the upside, the position, when we have a break of structure to the upside, one of the things we look at is, okay, we see if the origin that caused the break of structure, if it has a valid order block, and if it does have a valid order block, if it does have a valid order block, then we'll mark it down. So now this is what I mean. So this is what I mean by that. My origin that caused the break of structure. Here is it. Right. There is it. Good. Beautiful. There is it. The origin that caused the break of structure. There is it. So I always tell also spot out your 50% zone you want 50% of order block, you want your price to tap into, which for me I mark it as this. So let me mark my sweep of liquidity, and keep moving. This is my sweep of liquidity here. Sweep of liquidity, that's my origin protected. The sweep of liquidity tells me that okay, my origin is protected, but sometimes, not always, sometimes. And I have my breaker structure here, which is this breaker structure, which is this. Fine, this is my breaker structure, which is this. Good. So structure, which is this. So now we want to see how we use a trend line liquidity, how we spot a trend line liquidity in a setup, in a trade setup. So we go. So now, if we get the market doing something like this, now see the market doing something like this, market start doing something like this now. From this point, market start doing something like this. I wanted to notice that this market is it's creating a trend line liquidity. Just pay close attention. So you see your market doing something like this. Market is creating what I call a trend line liquidity downward. So you just need to pay attention to what the market is doing. So you're able to take note. So okay, this market is kind of doing something I've been taught about. So this market is creating a trend line liquidity. So what made the market's gathering liquidity? What made it so beautiful is that I've seen this work plenty times in higher time frame, where the market tries to align the higher time frame with lower time frame. You see, definitely in those kinds of markets, you see trend line liquidity very well. One of the things I'll be doing at the end of each video that I do is, when I'm posting them on the Telegram channel, I will try my possible best to drop an example of charts, live charts that signifies this, because these videos also will be using charts to redo them, but for now we want to work with diagrams, so to see how clearly we could go about the concepts. Okay, so I'm taking my time to just do what is necessary, so at the end of the day everybody's carried along. So now just see, market keeps forming something like this, trending. So something like, one of the purpose of the market doing like this is that the market wants to clear liquidity. To understand, when the market gets to this point, so you think the market will continue, it will continue, should I say you continue trending to break, it will break my order block. You understand now? Like, okay, since the market is trending downward, it will break my order block, and so you will be like, oh, the market is trending downward, it will definitely clear this order block. So one of the things the market wants to do is that market wants to clear all this liquidity. So let me show you what I mean. All these things here, they are liquidity. All these things here, they are clear line liquidity. Not in market wants to clear this liquidity, because most of the time many people will enter, will be getting setups here. So one of the things market wants to clear this liquidity. So how will the market do that? So definitely when the market gets to this point, to the actual order block, when it gets to the order block, tap into this zone. One of the things we notice is that one of the things we see most of the time is that the market will just do something like this. We just do something like this. Market does something like this, a little bit of pull back and move straight. If the market clears liquidity, the market moves more often faster. I've noticed that over time, when the market clears liquidity, the market moves faster over time. So that is how the stuff works. The market clears liquidity and it moves faster, so very fast. It's twinkling of an eye. TP is hit most of the time. Sometimes takes times to play around. So just see how it works. The market is just clear. You just want to clear liquidity, and that is all the market wants to do. It wants to clear liquidity. So now look at your liquidity. The market has cleared your liquidity, which is your trend line. This, so the market clears it out. You see it clears it out. Market clears it out. Those trend lines, it clears it out. Push out your TP for you, which is break the structure. Dish out it for you. See, so this is what the market is trying to do. So the moment you understand and you're able to identify, okay, this is what the market is trying to tell me, this is what the market is trying to do, and you position well, you patiently wait for the market to form the trend line liquidity, and not only patiently wait for the market to form the trend line liquidity, you also patiently wait for the market to clear the trend line liquidity. Then you are good to go. One of the things I will always advocate for is that the market test your patience. Definitely test your patience. Test how good you are in waiting, how good you are in making decisions. It is one thing to make decisions on a particular trade. It's another thing to wait patiently for that trade to play out. So patience matters in this. Patience really matters. So trend line liquidity for the uptrend setups. So say you see, look at the way you view it. This way you see it most of the times. The market will just give you a sweep of liquidity, your break of structure upward, and it begins to form your trend. You form your trend before it gets to your order block and hit it, then clears all this what they call it name, this liquidity. Why did I say this is liquidity? So let me show you something. Let me explain something to you. You see this point, you see this point, you see this point, you see this point. These are points where most traders, these points are carrying other blocks. Most traders are placing an entry here, some an entry here, some an entry here, some an entry here. So people are seeing this place as a break of structure, internally break of structure, internally break of structure, internally break of structure, internally. So most of people are placing trade either here, some here, some here, some here, feeling that the market will what? Give us a push downward, and you now see the market now do the otherwise. So instead of the market reacting at this point, it just clears them. So the market is liquidity driven. He tends to, the smart money concept talks about you thinking like the industries, you thinking like the big banks. So you thinking like them means you need to understand the concepts they use, which is their focus is liquidity. Try to get much liquidity in the market and play against your little fund or your little capital. So you need to know where is the industry, where the big banks, where are they placing their stop loss, where are they, and you just have to think like them. So this is how the trend line liquidity will always look on a setup, uptrend setup. This is how you also see your trend line liquidity. So now let's move to downtrend. So if you have a downtrend, how will the liquidity appear? how will the liquidity appear? If we have a downtrend market, how will we see the liquidity? How can we spot it, or how will it look like? So now for our downtrend, also we want to draw our downtrend structure. So now let's get that started. So now for our downtrend structure, we have something like this always. Break of structure or downward. Break of structure downward. Let's say this trade gives us a sweep of liquidity too. Say sweep liquidity in this kind of setup. Let's see. So sweep liquidity setups like this. We have a sweep of liquidity already. That makes this point protected. So we have our point of interest, which is our order block. So our order block unmitigated, we mark it out. Yes, because our order block unmitigated. So now we have our break of structure, which is this. Break of structure, which is this. And we have a sweep of liquidity. A sweep of liquidity is at this point, at this zone. The sweep of liquidity, market sweep liquidity gives us a break of structure downward. Sweep liquidity gives us a break of structure downward. So then we have our trend line liquidity, then it begins. So we begin to see our trend line liquidity. So trend line liquidity is just market doing something like this. Market just doing something like this. These are the concepts that as a trader you don't play with. You don't play with it. Early things I learned, one of the early things I learned is if you did not see the liquidity in the market, yeah, the liquidity. Oh God, actually true. So we begin to see the market doing something like this. Price doing something like this. Price doing something like this. Consistently pushing upward. Internal breaking, you see like a break of structures internally, like internal break of structure, signifying that the markets are like us MSS. Let me call it a shift of character, a change in character of the markets. And it's the market redirecting itself. The market position, it's saying, okay, I'm no longer a downtrend, I'm pushing upward internally. So most trader will be deceived, should I say. So okay, well, the market has shifted structure, so I want to trade, I want to take a picky trade internally, not knowing that what the market is trying to do is to gather liquidity. When it's done gathering liquidity, then it shows you its real intent, still aligning itself back to the original trend of the market. So that's why one of the things I learned from trend line liquidity is that you always align the internal trend to the view of the external trend. So if I'm having an uptrend externally, I should patiently wait to align the internal trend to an uptrend, not for me to align the, for instance, I'm having an uptrend on the higher time frame, I should come downward to the lower time frame to align that lower time frame towards what the external time frame is saying. So I don't have to go to the lower time frame and be looking for a downward trend when the external time frame is, or the higher time frame is saying something different. So understand, if you're able to get the concept of internal and external time frame, it helps you very well. It helps you. That's higher time frame and the lower time frame, how to align them. I think one of the videos I'll be dropping maybe within the week should be how to align your internal how to align your internal trend with your external trend, or the higher time frame with the lower time frame, because it would really help us. It will really help us. It will really help us to make some certain basic decisions in the market. So now price hits my 50% point of interest. So this is my trend line. You can see this is my trend line. Market is just trending. This is my trend line. Liquidity, you see it's to this point. It's my trend line liquidity. So now market hits this point, which is my point of interest, and reacted from that point. One of the things the market does, I told you, is to clear what? Liquidity. So one of the things it does is just do its thing, clears liquidity and leaves. So if you're unfortunate, you're on the wrong side of the charts, then you lose your money. On the right side of the charts, you smile. One of the things is that I always say it. Person who taught me said trust your analysis. If you trade eat sell, eat sell. If you eat TP, eat TP. So trust your analysis. So you trust your analysis means you do your homework. So this is my buy sell side liquidity. Also tap this is my sell side liquidity. Mark it out and market comes. Dish out for TP. So this is how I spot my trend line liquidity, both upward in an uptrend market and in a downtrend market. So in any of them, you can see them. We've talked about we've talked the videos we've been doing. We've talked about liquidity, and this is one of the liquidities again you see in the market, which is this a trend line liquidity. Always you must see them. You have a sweep of liquidity here, you have your break of structure. You go to your origin, find your unmitigated order block, mark it out, spot out your 50% of that order block you want price to come to react into, then position for your liquidity. So I've taught you trend line liquidity for both uptrend and downtrend, double bottom and double top liquidity for both uptrend and downtrend. Taught you engineered liquidity for both uptrend and downtrend. So just pay attention. If you must just see one of them. And the more you backtest, the more you understand the kind of liquidity that you find in a setup. So you have a trend line liquidity, and price definitely hits. And one of the things price wants to do is to clear all this little order block, this little point of entry here, and that is what the market did. Clears them out, use them as liquidity, as fuel to push the market. So that is how we spot out our trend line liquidity, both for uptrend and downtrend, and make necessary decisions with it. So bye for now. Stay tuned. Just make sure you are 1% better each day in anything you're doing. So stay tight, be good, just be consistent. Take care of yourself. See you in our next video.